Hello and welcome back to another episode of Advanced RC Adventures. This is a channel where we investigate, explore, build and explain, upgrade, and advance Nitro RCs to another level. Come start a new adventure with me. Today we have a new engine overview episode, and we have what maybe only a few of us in the hobby community are aware of. K&B. This is the K&B 18. This is what they designate for the car engine specific, and it came in a couple different flavors. You may be aware of K&B because they have a larger presence over the many years they've been in business with their marine engines and their aero engines. So let's get this opened up and start the adventure with this K&B 18. Got it here in our bubble wrap. This is a brand new engine, but it already has been cleaned, disassembled, reassembled. Did our formal kind of inspection like I like to do with all of the brand new engines, and I wanted to share it with you today. So out of our bubble wrap, have our desiccant bag here. This is, I want to use the word unique, but at the same time, this is very much the same as a traditional engine that has been with us for many, many years in the hobby. And that is the 12E and the 15FE from Shuwa TOKI built. And the reason I say that is because this particular engine that you can still buy brand new today from the California company K&B is made and built off of the very same or very similar kind of design that Shuwa had created for those E and FE engines. This is what K&B simply calls the K&B 18. This is the auto version because I mentioned there's three different flavors. One has what they call this bar stock, this cylinder style head. Another one comes with essentially the same aluminum cast version that you see on the 12E and the 15FE. And then another version that does not have a pull start, does not have the pull start backplate. It has just a bump start backplate, but it uses a different style carb that they designate for their aero version for this 18 size. We have a nice cast-in K&B here, standard shaft. These use that 2-style flat crankshaft that you can use the older HPI aluminum cast flywheel. This particular one did come with a glow plug, but nowadays when they sell them, it does not come with glow plugs, as all of the materials for the plugs have become pretty darn expensive. So we're going to do our kind of traditional overview. We're going to take the carb off. Notice that we have two bolts here holding on the carb, very, very similarly to the 12E and the 15FE. We're going to take off the back plate and the head. We're going to take a look at all the internals and talk about some of the history along the way. So let's get these carburetor bolts out of here. These are effectively the same thing that's on the 15FE. So I mentioned in some of the other videos, especially the recent ones for the 12E and the 15FE, that in a way Shuwa and K&B were partners of sorts. K&B has always been in the United States, but nowadays K&B owns all of the rights to Shuwa and Toki. So something that's curious and interesting is this idle bleed hole. This is not something that you see on a lot of carburetors nowadays. This here has a spring and a bolt. You can fine adjust or fine tune your idle with that bleed hole there in the back. We still have our barrel idle set screw. This is a single needle carb. There's just the Phillips head that holds on that arm onto the barrel, and it's a single needle carb, and that is on an 18 size engine. But this back air bleed hole that sometimes you see on aero engines is on this auto engine. This uses that same flat style butyl kind of seal or O-ring, just like on the 15 FEs. One thing to note though is that this is not your average 12 or 15 FE carb. This has a very large bore down inside. Let's measure the bottom neck here first. We're just at 7 millimeter. And if we open up the barrel and get this down inside, this is a 6 millimeter bore. So why that's special? One, it's the largest bore that you can find in this style of carburetor, even though it's a single needle carb. The stock carb had a 4.6 millimeter bore for the 12E and the 15 FE. There was an upgraded one that was a 5 millimeter bore, but this is a 6 millimeter. If you can get your hands on one of these, it would be really curious to put this on a 12E or 15 FE and see how it does. Now, you're not going to have the complete tunability because it is just a single needle carb, but at full throttle, having that large of an opening, that may give it a decent amount of torque boost, at least on the low end. So that's something interesting and fun to note about this particular K&B carb. Let's set that to the side. Very kind of much the same style there on the block. The back plate does not have a sticker, but this effectively is the exact same back plate that you find on the HPI versions that were made by Toki. And why I mentioned that this 18 is kind of special is that in Japan they released, and some parts of Europe, an 18 FE. And that's effectively what this particular engine is. It's not dubbed an HPI 18 FE, this is the K&B 18, but this is effectively what that engine is. But the 18 FE never really made its presence over in the United States because around the same time the SS versions, the 12 RSS and the 18 SS versions that went on the MT2 and even the HPI RS43 had that 18 SS. And so an 18 FE really wasn't needed, or I guess deemed to be wanted or needed for the American market. Let's take off this back plate and keep on going. This is a nice looking engine with the black back plate, the black head on that silver aluminum base. We got side exhaust here. It's just a decent looking engine. And again, you can buy these. You can buy these engines still today. They're a little bit more expensive than what you can find some of the other 18s. So in my opinion, they're not as popular, maybe for two reasons. One, a lot of people don't know about them. And two, with them being a little bit more cost, that kind of is a deterrent as well. But we're going to take a look at the internals and you'll start to figure out why some of it's pretty unique, as well as maybe why the market isn't flooded with these particular engines. So this pull start has a retainer, very similar to all the other HPI versions. Pretty standard pull start here. Our outside one-way bearing, the same as our 15 FE. We've got Phillips style bolts holding down this back plate. So let's go ahead and get these off. As we go through this engine, you are going to see some extreme similarities between those Shuwa made FE engines and this KNB 18, and that is on purpose. It's essentially the exact same foundation. Now, of course, there's differences. The sleeves are different sizes, but the back plate is the same. We use the exact same starter shaft with that little cutout. We've got our brass bushing pressed inside with our paper gasket. This is a semi-interference piston for this back plate here with that cutout. And take a look at the internals, and what do you guys see inside? That is a brass connecting rod, just very much the same as the 15 and the 12E. So let's pop off this head and keep it going. Now this engine is brand new. It has not seen any fuel, but since I did go through it, I upgraded all of the hardware to the stainless hex style hardware like I do on a lot of my engines. Let's go ahead and measure these. These are an M2.5, and they look to be about 12 millimeter long, so not the most robust head bolt. And the back plate bolts or M2.5 as well, in a kind of a standard 6 millimeter size for folks that are always kind of interested in that info. But here we have something a little bit different. Okay, we have a lot of similarities, but this is for sure different. We've got an underhead or a button head. So let's take a look at our head here. This is a CNC machined head. We've got it cut out and recessed for that button. So this is a nice upgrade compared to those E and FE engines that KNB decided to do. We have our button head style, but still a nice looking head. This is a bi-directional head, so we have air that can go through one side and the other, but not all the way around. Let's go ahead and get this button out of here. Something I noticed a long time ago when I first opened this up is how big, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but how big this compression bowl is for these engines. Right now this has a standard style plug, but you can, bi-direction, you can use a long reach plug without any issue by KNB, so that provides a little bit of diversity, and which makes it a little bit more unique that they decided. You can use a standard size plug. Right now this has an OS 8 in it. KNB manufactures their own plugs as well. They are a little bit pricey, but they do use premium products. So you can pick some of those up and use some long style or an LC3 and LC4 as well for this engine. Let's take off our head shim. It has one head shim. It's aluminum. And this is a 0.2 head shim for this 18 size. See if we can't just pull the sleeve out. We're going to take a look at this sleeve in here just a second. Take a look down inside. To me, anyway, that has looked at these engines for years and years, that piston is huge, and it should be because this is an 18 size engine. So let's get that out of there and keep the adventure going for this KNB 18. So this has a nice single oil groove up top. This is a cast piston that has been later machined. This has the floating style wrist pin that uses that Delrunner plastic little puck so that it doesn't score up this sleeve. So that wrist pin is floating. Essentially the exact same brass style connecting rod. And this does have a boost port, but it's effectively the same. There's no milling down inside of the block. This uses that hidden boost port, and that's what this hole in the piston is for. Remember, the air goes up underneath, it goes out that little hole, and then the sleeve itself has an opening and a passageway that goes and puts that mixed air into the compression chamber for combustion. Let's pop out our crank. This has to look familiar to you. We've covered a number of different Shuwa TOKI built engines. Has the same effective balance lobe as the 12V and the 15FE. The window is effectively all the same. Our crank bore is 6.9, almost 7. This is effectively the exact same crank as the 15FE. We use chrome steel bearings front and rear, and this uses the very traditional metal shield bearings, very much the same as the 12 and the 15FE. You can replace these if you want, but they're still pretty good bearings, nice and smooth down inside. Have our side exhaust window there. Just a pretty basic but very nice overall block. And the bore here is opened up for that 18 size. So let's jump back over to our sleeve. Notice this is nickel plated. So these engines are still built in 2024 in a very traditional way with nickel plating. And we have our exhaust port here, kind of the standard rectangular shape. We have our transfer port, very much the same as the other Shuwa built engines. The other side transfer port. There's a bevel on this side and a bevel on the inside going up towards this way into the combustion chamber. And then here is our boost port. So the air comes up underneath, goes out of the hole, and what happens is that there is a bevel on the inside of this boost port on the top. It comes out of the hole. It's now, envision, it's blocked here by the engine block. There's no milling out of the hole into this window and up through that little beveled passage into that combustion chamber. So this is that same hidden boost port style engine. This is nickel plated, and this is what I was saying, that for the cost, it's not horrible, but it is a bit more expensive than some of the other 18s out there that you can find on the market. But those offer an ABC construction. This is still an ABN construction where it is aluminum piston, a brass sleeve, but it's nickel coated instead of being chromed. So this is a pretty interesting engine offered right now from the company K&B that's based out of California. They own the rights to Shuwa and TOKI. Still building traditional style engines. Again, they're known a lot for their aero and their marine, but it's definitely a good option for you and for me to have something like this K&B 18 auto version on one of your cars and trucks. They provide plenty of power and they still look good. And if you want a brand new engine that can have part support, but you want it to be more of a 15, 20, 25 year vintage look, this is definitely the engine that I would recommend. So if you enjoy these types of engine overviews, you're welcome to check out some of the other episodes as well here at Advanced RC Adventures. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you like 10 scale, nitro, and especially touring cars, then this is a place to be. And thanks for taking the adventure with me.